What's up, everyone? Man here, and we've got another modern meta breakdown video for you guys. It is our first video of 2021 that's focused on the modern scene, and we're going to be talking about a fun deck for me, but not for a lot of people. That's Lantern Control. So Lantern Control is a deck that has existed for quite a few years now. We'll talk kind of the ins and outs of what the deck is trying to do, why people might hate the deck, and why is it coming back now. So starting out with at least the last question there, why is it coming back now? So basically when Modern Horizons 1 came out, there was the release of Urza, right? And the Thopter combo style of deck kind of fused with the Lantern Control deck for a little bit, and basically the Lantern, the lockout pieces that existed, kind of fell to the wayside as people tried to make this kind of Urza Sword of the Meek combo work out. And then that kind of shifted and people went, okay, let's try with Urza and Emery, and maybe we'll go back into a semi-Lantern style of deck. And now we're getting back into kind of the old school version of it, right? Originally, Lantern Control was set up as kind of a black-green. Every now and again, you would see it as a black-blue-green. And then, Urza kind of took over and go for it. But originally it was set up kind of as a rock style deck. And the reason for that was because you got access to discard effects like Inquisition, like Thoughtseize, and you'd be able to get access to Tutor-esque effects off of things like Ancient Stirrings. Now, once Urza came out, people go, well, now all these artifacts that I'm playing are tapping for mana. I get access to other tutor effects that are in blue for artifacts, right? So it kind of shifted and changed, but the original version of it was set up just kind of as a rock version of it. Now you can see it's Abzan style. There is access to blue specifically because of one of the lands. Academy Runes is in the list to get artifacts back on top, but you don't have any blue mana except for stuff like Glimmer Void and Spire of Industry to make blue mana. It'll make all the sense soon. But you can look at our list, and there are 0 creatures. So the idea behind Lantern Control is you're going to assemble a series of artifacts, get your machine up and running, where you're able to see the top cards of both players' library, and you get to manipulate and determine which cards your opponent get to draw. When they have specific cards into your hand, then you can decide, do I want them to keep those, or am I going to be committing my resources to strip those from their hand using things like Inquisition, using things like Thoughtseize. So it's a very frustrating deck to play against. It is a difficult deck to pilot. One of the most difficult decks to pilot because you have to have a good understanding of each matchup and specifically each deck in the modern scene to be able to be good with this deck. If you're new and trying to pick this deck up, it's going to take a lot of reps to practice how to determine threat assessments. Essentially, on every single turn, you have to be determining, is this card going to be a problem? And you're checking the top of their library. Is that card going to be a problem? Now that I know what's in their hand, what's on the top of the library, I have perfect information to determine how this match is going to go. And now it's going to be up to me to make sure that I'm cycling through the cards that they need to try to beat me and get those into the graveyard as quick as possible. So there's 15 spells in here. We talked about the Disruption, Inquisition, Thoughtseize package. That's tried and true in a Lantern style of deck because you need to have that information about what is in their hand in order to kind of help make the best guesses or best determinations on what to get rid of off the top of their library. If you don't have that information, then you're just stuck guessing, and doesn't really work out too well. Ancient Stirrings, of course, helps you tutor up for specific stuff because you look at your top 5 cards. Pick, of course, in this case, colorless, so that means lands if you're short on lands, or all the artifacts. You can see there are 24 artifacts in this list. Above me, you can see cycling through as the key pieces to make up the Lantern package. This sort of lockout, I determine what's on the top of the library and whether it matters or not. So there are 3 get rid of effects, right? We've got our Pixis of Pandemonium, we've got our Ghoul Caller's Bell, and we've got our Codex Shredder. Now, Ghoul Caller's Bell and Pixis get rid of both of ours, where Codex Shredder is target player. Codex Shredder also has that added bonus of paying 5 mana, stacking it, and getting something back from your graveyard. So you do have that option in there. There are a lot of just sort of hey, fill up my yard with stuff. So I can be able to take advantage of it. All right, I'm going to be cycling through my deck using things like Mishra's Bauble, using Ancient Stirrings to kind of draw through stuff. My goal is to assemble a Lantern of Insight as quickly as possible and hopefully an Ensnaring Bridge as quickly as possible to protect myself. So the idea, get out Lantern of Insight. We both play with our top of our library revealed. I'm now using cards like Codex Shredder, Ghoul Caller's Bell, and Pixis to start taking that top card, either exiling it or putting it into your graveyard, and just slowly attrition you down. Works really well against those decks that are like, hey, I have specific cards that I really need, combo-oriented stuff, and now those combo pieces are gone. Makes it really hard, especially if you're using Pixis to exile stuff. There's also things like our Soul Guide Lantern in here to get rid of things in graveyards, right? When it enters the battlefield, you get rid of one card, and you can always, of course, sacrifice it and be able to get rid of all cards in the graveyard. So Soul Guide Lantern is a really nice addition in here. There's a lot of one-ofs you can see, and that's part of the power of it. Is it's a toolbox deck for Artifact that cares about what is on the top of your library and what's in your hand. I'm playing with as much information as possible, and I'm going, okay, I know that you're going to be playing a graveyard-based deck, then I need to be focusing more on getting my Pixis up. I need to focus more on getting that Soul Guide Lantern up to make sure I'm exiling those stuff that cares about your graveyard. I also need to make sure that I'm going to be able to have access to activated abilities and shutting those down, right? Things like Pithing Needle. In this regard, there is kind of our one-of Pithing Needle that is in the list here. In the main board, there is additional ones in the sideboard. You have these one-ofs to answer specific threats. Oh, I know what threat is coming up based on the Lantern telling me what's up, based on the Inquisition showing me what's up within your hand. So now I can say, okay, Pithing Needle, and we'll name whatever Planeswalker you might have. We might name something like Inkmoth Nexus, where you might be trying to kill me with infect damage with a giant hammer attached to it, or through infect. Now you cannot, because Pithing Needle prevents that from becoming a creature. So you have to have these ways to find those lines, and understanding what decks are in the meta is the reason why this deck can be good, and why very specific players are being able to win certain leagues on MTGO. We're seeing it pop up, right? 5-0s, 6-0s. They're doing very well with this list because they understand the meta and they understand how these decks are trying to function. Going through some of the other stuff, Elixir of Immortality is in here. Basically, it's a shuffle effect. I'm using a lot of resources, but now I can kind of gain some life and get those resources back. So really, really important card. Expedition Map, right, is amazing in this list because it helps us tutor for the most important land. And one of the main reasons why this deck is coming back now is because of that land, Urza's Saga, which now has brought back the original style of Lantern Control. This lets us tutor for those one-cost artifacts, well, 0 or 1, right? Which you look at our list, right? Okay, that's pretty much everything except for Ensnaring Bridge. So I'm guaranteed to be able to get those pieces out quicker, such as Lantern of Insight, such as my Codex Shredder, my Ghoul Callers, my Pixis, whatever I might need early enough that I have a way now to get that information and start manipulating your library. Originally, some people were running some more removal spell, target removal against creatures. We do have that now, but it's even better than it is before. So now we get access to getting rid of not just creatures, but non-land permanents with our Prismatic Ending. And the reason we shifted into that kind of 3-color Abzan style of play, right? That white, black, and green. Prismatic Ending is an amazing card. It's X and a white with that converge. Exile target non-land permanent if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of colors of mana that you have spent to cast this spell. So it is a 3-color list, but we do have access to all colors. So if you're running something that has a 4 cost, 5 cost, we have access to that through our Spire of Industry, through our Glimmer Void. So we have the ways to be able to make all 5 colors if need be. Hopefully we don't have to get rid of too much 5 cost things, but hey, it is one thing to take note, is that is the nice thing about this, is having these lands that can give us any color mana that we might want. All right, so let's talk a little bit about sideboard stuff. So we know what the main deck is trying to do. It's a lockout style of deck that focuses on being able to get as much information as possible to shut down everyone else's game plan. Now, there's specific cards in our sideboard that are doing similar things. Things like Torpor Orb, right? We know there's a lot of ETB effects that exist for creatures. Things like Primeval Titan, who's always strong, right? We've got our Croax, Titan of Death's Hunger. We've also got our new Evoke creatures, right? There's Fury, there's Endurance, and then, of course, we've got our blue-white control style of playing that's playing Solitude, which is one of the best, like, exile type effects that's out there. So getting rid of ETB stuff does help us out, but they're sideboard because, hey, we're getting rid of cards in your hand, we're getting rid of cards on top, and if you are playing creatures, well, I don't really care because you're not going to be attacking me because I'm getting rid of all the cards in my hand as well, because all of my stuff is costing, 1 mana pretty much. Like, you look at our Prismatic Ending is really expensive most of the time, where we're casting it for maybe 3 mana, give or take. Maybe we've got our Ensnaring Bridge for 3 mana. Otherwise, the deck's full of 1 cost stuff. And then a few zeros with Welding Jar to protect our artifacts, as well as Mishra's Bauble to kind of dig for stuff. So Torpor Orb's in the sideboard, not main board for that, but does, something to keep in mind, especially if people are having like ETB, destroy artifacts type effects. We've got more protection with Spellskite in here. Sometimes that's in main board. Doesn't really matter at this point, but you'll see a lot more of those one-ofs. Welding Jar, extra protection as need be. A lot of people just run Artifact Hate anyway in their sideboard, so having things like Welding Jar and Spellskite to kind of bring in for Game 2, Game 3 are really nice. More graveyard-based hate is Grafdigger's Cage. We've got stuff like Dampening Sphere to kind of help deal a little bit with Tron. Right? If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces 1 colorless instead. So it just kind of shuts them down a little, slows them down. Hey, your Tron lands now count as just regular lands. We talked about additional Pithing Needles for more activated abilities that you have to worry about. We do run Nature's Claim in here. So this is both removal against opponents, but it's also pulls double duty if we're playing against a kind of blitz style, burn style deck where we need that for life. Right? Destroying target artifact or enchantment, its controller gains 4 life. So that's say, oh, cool, I'll throw down a Mishra's Bauble. I have 2 Lanterns of Insight now. I'll kill one of them, gain 4 life, because that life can be really relevant, especially if we're taking a lot of damage early before we can get an Ensnaring Bridge. So we've got some Leyline of Sanctity is also in here as a way to help protect us, right? It gives us hexproof, so that kind of nice starting effect of, hey, this is my opening hand, now it's onto the battlefield, I don't have to pay 4 mana. But if I draw it on later, it's cool. But in the matchups you really need it, having 4 of to bring in, shuffle up, go, sweet, cool, I'm playing against Burn, I know they have a lot of damage coming my way, so now they basically just have to kill me with creatures, and they're not going to be able to do that because I'm for sure going to get an Ensnaring Bridge before they can kill me. So I might aggressively mulligan to make sure I have that Leyline of Sanctity out, right? Not as many Burn players, but there still are some, so you have to keep that in mind. Also, in case there are some more discard effects that might be running around, Leyline's just all around an amazing card. So Kaya or Orzhov Usurper is in here. Amazing card because it helps us deal with certain annoying cards like that monkey that might be running around, as you guys have seen. It also kind of manipulates people's graveyards, so it's really cool to be able to see these type of lists start coming back into the meta, because I love Lantern Control, but it's also because I love Modern, so I'm focusing on all the different decks and really kind of trying to learn, okay, what are they doing, how are they doing this, so I can be able to talk to you guys about all these cool decks that are in Modern. So what do you guys think about the Lantern Control list? Do you like this sort of lockout style of play? Have you played against it before? Have you hated it? I mean, I know there's a lot of slow plays that end up going along with Lantern Control. A lot of people might, if they're learning the deck, end up going to time because they're, it's hard to learn. Like I said, it's very difficult to pilot if you're not used to it. Once you start getting used to it, finding out which matchups you care about, which pieces earlier, it'll help you. Urza Saga is a big boon to this deck and will kind of allow it to keep getting a little bit more wins as people try to figure out how to deal with this kind of list. So I'm really happy to see Lantern Control back. There's going to be a lot of really cool decks that are going to start popping up in the Modern scene as we're starting to get into some new sets being released. So We'll be doing this again more often. As you guys know, we're trying to do at least one video a month coming out for Modern Meta Breakdown as well as a Commander game. We were trying out some different stuff. Maybe you'll see a one-on-one commander. Maybe you'll see like a 3-person pod, 4-person pod, maybe even 5-person pods. We'll try some different stuff with our commander stuff. We've also got some cool cube content coming up, so make sure you guys are checking out all that kind of good stuff we've got coming up on the channel. If you guys haven't seen, there's also, of course, our other channel that we've got content on. But if you guys stick around, you'll be able to find out all the links and all the information about all that kind of good stuff. But thanks for tuning in and watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next game. Thanks for tuning in and watching, guys. Nanman here. I just wanted to give a little bit of a shout out about all the other great content that is on all the channels that I've been producing. So if you guys are watching Magic related stuff, you know that on Modern Magic Mondays YouTube channel, we do have, of course, Modern content. We've got Commander content and Cube content. There's also a podcast that kind of highlights different stuff that I'm doing in that scene, as well as kind of just other gaming related stuff. And that is, of course, Nanman's Nerd Corner. You can see that wherever podcasts are found. Of course, on my original gaming channel for YouTube, youtube.com/Nanman, you can be able to see video game stuff. There's Sea of Thieves content, Minecraft, lots of StarCraft stuff. There's a history, a look back at StarCraft 2 that kind of goes through the history of the start of esports, pretty much the explosion from 2010. So you guys can check out that sort of content. If you're liking this sort of stuff, you guys can also show additional support over on the Patreon. Of course, that is patreon.com/TheRealNanman. Twitter is the same sort of deal, @TheRealNanman. You guys can, of course, find all the links to all the content and all the stuff that I'm doing down below. But the best way to show those supports, guys, is to hit those subscribes, the follows, all that kind of good stuff. Spread the word. Let people know about all the cool stuff that I've got going on here. But thanks for tuning in and watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next game.